So let me start with apologizing because I don't speak Polish, so you need to bear with my English or Hungarian English or whatever it is, because the only word I know in Polish is dziękuję, so that's how much I can tell, but dziękuję for being here and being with me. So I will talk about EIT Digital and in particular EIT Digital Accelerator, but I will start with a more generic overview of who we are and what we do. And in the end, I prepared a few very basic advices, although sitting in the back of the room during the last presentation, I really felt like it's a great pity that I don't speak Polish, because I picked up some words from the previous presentation, and maybe he was giving the same advice as I will be giving you. So if that's the case, I'm sorry again, but then the repetition might help. So anyhow, what is EIT Digital and who we are in general? So I would say, let me start with the fact that EIT Digital is a non-profit organization, a European non-profit organization. And if I want to make jokes, our mission is to build the European Silicon Valley. So basically, we would like to create a strong European ecosystem, innovation ecosystem. That's our mission. And we are working very hard on it since 2010. And we have a very strong organization. So let me take a step back and think about what do we need if we want to build a strong European innovation ecosystem. First of all, you need great, strong players open to innovations. And I'm very happy to say that we have that within the domain of digital technologies or information technology or communications technology, whatever terms you prefer to use. Basically, we have all the strong players on our board working with us. I listed a few large companies here which you might know, but the basic rule is that if there is an IT company you know in Europe, which is not a local company but an international company, then it's 90% or 95% sure that that company is among our partners. Same is true for Telefonica companies, like telecommunications companies. So basically in ICT, information and communications technology, we have a strong network of 140 partners. And all what we are doing is essentially based on this collaboration with them. And let me then tell you what we do. We have this strong partner network. So what do you need? Of course, you need innovative ideas, you need new companies, and you need to somehow make sure that the new ideas and the new companies get stronger and stronger and grow. For the ideas and the companies, we do two things. First, we have our internal process of connecting universities and research organizations to companies, find the business need to the technology push that we have, the new technologies that we have at the research organizations or the universities. So we try to make sure that it's not only a technology push, it's not driven by the new technology opportunities, but it's more pulled by the market. So we go out to our partners and investigate what business pains do they have. This is one part that we do. More important for this audience here is that we are also actively looking around, scouting companies, small companies, scale-ups or startups. I will talk about that more later, who have that idea, who are getting stronger, and we help them, we work with them. That's going to be the bulk of my presentation, so I put it aside for now, but I will get back to that. Because we have the large partnership, we have the open companies, we have the new companies, we try to work with them. What else do you need for a strong innovation ecosystem? You need a culture, and you need new heads, new people. So we also have a large education program training people. So we have a master school with 9 master programs at 21 universities across Europe, because we have 21 universities among our partners, basically the oldest and most innovative universities in Western Europe, in the Nordics, and in a couple of other countries. And what we offer is a combined education. These master's programs offer technology degrees, like in data science or autonomous vehicles or embedded systems, etc. But they have the specialty that they also have a strong component in innovation and entrepreneurship. So basically what we want is the students that graduate from our schools would be ready to either start their own startup or be able to understand what it means to run a business. So even though they are not starting their own startup, they would be open to ideas. They would understand what it takes to grow a business, etc. So that's about our master school. We have, as I said, 8 programs, and we have something like around 2,000 students per year in this program across Europe. And it's being implemented at the university, so it's a very generous offering to the students because basically they get 3 diplomas if they do our program, because the program is 2 years program, 1 year at one university, 1 year at the other university, so they get diplomas from the 2 universities, plus they get this entrepreneurship diploma from EIT Digital. So for one master course for 2 years, for one master program, they get 3 very prestigious diplomas. But we also have a PhD program, a doctoral school, along the similar ideas. It's an industrial PhD school, so it's the topics or the thesis of each of the PhD student is highly connected or strongly connected to a very cutting-edge industrial problem at one of our leading partners. And I'm also very happy to say that this is also a very successful program. We have a huge inflow of students there as well. And we have a professional school for those people who already gone through their education and they are already on the market and want to check back and learn about latest technologies. So this is it. This is basically the 3 ways we operate. We connect our research/university organizations to corporates and create our own ventures, our own startups. We educate people who then come up with new ideas. And then at the EIT Digital Accelerator, we work with companies, with young companies, either those with those whom we created during our collaborations among partners, or with scale-ups that we found elsewhere in Europe. And in the rest of the presentation, I will focus on that. So let me try to explain why I use this word scale-up. And every time I said startup, I almost always corrected it to scale-up, because this is how we see the evolution of young companies. You start with a pilot stage. You might call it differently, but basically there is a piloting phase when you are trying to put together your solution, your technologies. Then at one point you get market validation, and then you get the first rollout. Basically you step on the market, you make your first couple of sales, and then there is a significant milestone when you reach, say, 20 repeated sales. Repeated might be also a very important word here, not necessarily 20 sales, but 20 customers who come back. At that point, you start to look like a real business. And then, if you are lucky and if the business is good, then you reach the phase of exponential growth, when everything starts to happen quickly, and then you have the potential to really have an impact, like really reaching potentially global or regional scale. And what we do, we provide support and help once you reach this point. And the reason for that is that we see our added value in the capacity to help companies to internationalize. We are an international company. Soon I will have a map showing that we have 15 offices in Europe, in 9 countries, and we have 1 office in the Silicon Valley in San Francisco in the United States. So based on these 16 offices, what we can bring to the company is this power of internalization, the understanding of different markets. And we do not want to mess or compete with accelerators or incubators or whatever you want to call them, who work locally or regionally. And the reason for that is that in Europe, you don't really have a problem with those. In every country across Europe, you have very strong players in this field who do a very great job. So if a company needs help in the first couple of phases, reaching the market or making sure that the revenue inflow is stable, etc., that they can be very well served by local organizations, VCs, accelerators. They go under different names. Where added value can be provided by us is when they reach the phase when they have, say, 1 million euros revenue per year. So they are already an established player in the local market, maybe regionally, and they want to enter other markets. And that's where an international organization like EIT Digital can be helpful, because we really have people from across Europe with a strong expertise. And well, this is a snapshot of some of them. So basically, we have 50 plus business developers, senior business developers, who are very experienced in different things. I mean, some of them are experienced in access to market, as we call it. Basically, they can generate leads in specific domains and in specific countries. These people are living in different countries in Europe, and they have a history, personal history in various countries in Europe. So basically, an example, if somebody, just recently we had a case when a company came and they wanted to have strong industrial, automotive, or other assembly industrial contacts in Germany. And we had 2 people on our payroll who were very well networked in this area. They knew how to approach and whom to approach. Similarly, in other cases, companies wanted to enter the Nordic market, Finland, Sweden, and we could connect them to those experts in our group who are versed there. So that's the access to market part, where we basically generate leads for the companies in the different countries. And also we can advise them, like, our experts can explain how the market works in Italy, in Germany. Sometimes it's not the same or not totally the same. So there are differences, which is good to know. Other people are experts in fundraising, because we also have an access to finance service. We do not invest ourselves, but we help putting together these syndicated packages for the companies. And that's the reason why we were the other way around. So since we are working with scale-ups, normally these scale-ups need an investment of the size of 1 to 10 million euros. Normally, it's difficult to get in one pack, so an expert advice on how to syndicate the investment could be helpful. So basically, this is what we have in the accelerator. And this is a few numbers on what we have achieved so far. Basically, the accelerator exists since 2012. EIT Digital exists since 2010, but the accelerator was started 2 years later. We have been working with successful companies in 15 countries. And in total, so far, we have supported actually at the moment more than 240 companies, and we are very proud to say that over 90% of those companies still exist. So they are alive and they also grow. We have facilitated in total 250 million investment, and just in the last year, so that's the other part, we've helped companies with over 600 leads to 45 specific trade shows and events where they could actually make deals. The average team size growth of our company over this year was 70%, and the average revenue growth was 150%. What else? Yes, of course. Average investment size last year was 2.7 million, and altogether we had a little less than 10 investments raised. So basically, this is a very short number list of what we do. The point is at the IT Digital Accelerator, the point is that we really want to help companies to get international, and we want to engage with them at the point when they are really well established in their local market. And what we can advise them with is how to do that. And here are a few logos of companies that we have helped and a few quotes. New Labs is a company building wearables for fashion designers, and the quote we got from the CEO was basically that at the moment they started working with us, we sent a number of leads to them. So it was a steady flow of leads and customers. Free Your Mind, you might have heard about, is a company doing a platform for industrial 3D printing. They were also very happy with us when we worked with them a couple of years ago, because they had the opportunity to meet industry leaders, which was very important for them, because as I said, they are offering 3D printing for large industries, so they needed to get in contact with the main players. And same or similar quote from Vangini, we have to open doors for them, because that's our real power across Europe. Yeah, and before turning on to the part when I'm collecting those few advices that we can very briefly share, and which might be a repetition of what was said before, let me tell a few words about myself. I had a double, before joining EIT Digital, I had a double career in academia and business. I've been at the Loránd Eötvös University. I'm Hungarian. That's the largest science and technical university of Hungary. I spent a few years at Harvard University, and when I returned to Europe, I started a company with my friends that's called ITEA. That was back in 2000, actually, end of 2000, early 2001. And for a while, we were growing very rapidly. We made it to the top 10 at the Central European fastest growing companies list. We were number 1 in Hungary for a number of years, etc., etc. And the company still exists. We stopped our exponential growth. We saturated after a while. We were too early in many cases. We did the first chatbot in Europe, which was way too early. That was in 2003. And then nobody understood what a chatbot was. Now everybody talks about chatbots and things like that. But the company is strong and kicking. I decided to exit it 3 years ago when it became a little bit too boring for me. So then I joined the IT Digital to share my experience. And since then I've been working on our program in Central and Eastern Europe, trying to find proper partner organizations in this business, accelerators and venture capitals, and also trying to find the scale-ups that we can help. And then since this summer, in addition to my Central and Eastern European responsibilities, I became the director of EIT Digital in Hungary. So I became way too busy for these too many things. But I wanted to offer some very basic advice, and I apologize in advance that these are not going to be the ultimate truth, and these are really so basic things that probably most of you know them already. Still, sometimes it's good to repeat them and put them in context. So basically, 6 ideas about what it takes to scale up, or what to think about, or what to watch for or be careful about. First and foremost, don't overestimate yourself. I mean, I don't want to be really, now I don't want to say be modest, because you really need to be ambitious, but you also need to be realistic. And let me offer you a nice case study here. I don't know how many of you have heard of this nice German company. It's been a phenomenon a while back. Actually, I'm a little bit shocked to see that it's almost 10 years ago. It seems so new, but anyhow, it was a high-tech startup offering a device, purifying air, basically taking out all the germs and viruses from the air. And it's a very useful thing to have, of course. And it was a very serious thing. They put 3 years of R&D in it, and it really worked well. They burned about 6 million euros investment. So they really created a very strong technology. And they were very optimistic. They actually went on market on the 1st of March in 2008 with a big campaign. And they were very, very optimistic. They even announced to be on the London Stock Exchange. So by May 26, they had this press release with all the plans, etc. And also within 2 weeks on the market, they had 250 interested customers. So they really did this big campaign. They announced this product. It was a fairly expensive product. And the leads were pouring in. So every day or every week, new customers actually appeared to say, okay, I want this. This is really useful. And then, unfortunately, the leads never converted to sales. They were very popular. People were interested. They came, they visited them. But the owners and the runners of the company were so taken away with this wave of interest and popularity that somehow they forgot to actually, sign the contract. So in the end, they sold, I believe, 24 units or something like that. So they went down very soon afterwards. So I would emphasize the speed from lead to sales. So if you are in this business, especially in the growth phase, when you start to get the attention, you start to get the leads, really focus on turning them into sales and business. Because interest is one thing, but if you are not making money, it will go away. If you are successful in turning the leads into business, then the interest may prevail, or normally it does. Second, virality, or this quote, we did not invest $1 into marketing, which is a very popular approach these days. I don't know, I have listened to a number of presentations at various conferences about growth hacking and all sorts of tricks designed to get your product known or your company known across the globe or the market. And basically the idea is that you forget about the traditional marketing and sales practices. You do a great trick, something that goes viral, and all of a sudden 1 billion people would be clicking on your website or ordering your product. Which is fine. I mean, I'm not against viral videos or viral campaigns, etc. But what I'm trying to emphasize here is that trying to create a viral video or a viral campaign is like buying a lottery ticket. Like, winners do exist, right? But like 1 in a million or 1 in 100,000, I don't know. So if you are the CEO of a company and you put your bet on doing a viral video and on that only, then you are basically buying a lottery ticket, and you may win, but it's a very low probability. On the other hand, doing the traditional sales or marketing job is being prudent, being a good businessman, and on the side you can always do the attempt on getting viral. And basically this is what happened to these folks as well. They became viral, they were all over the place, but they didn't do their basic homework. Very similar basic idea, sorry about the quality of the picture, is confusing your, being confused about who is your customer. Just the fact that there is a potential market, like, the total addressable market versus the served available market and versus the market that you can actually sell to is maybe very different. And if you are not clear about to whom you can actually sell, you will be in trouble. But these are very basic things. The first three things were basic advices to scale-ups, and then soon we will get to the internalization. This is also yet another basic idea, is misunderstanding your competition. And this was something about, was the point when I picked up a few words from the previous presentation, which might have been very similar. Basically, one common mistake is what I hear is when I ask the company, okay, describe me your competition, and some people are very happy saying, okay, we do not have a competition, we are the first to offer this solution. And then I get really worried because of several things. First of all, if there is no such or similar product on the market, then my first thought is that we are missing something, and this is what I put there for getting the paper and pen solution. Maybe the market or the people doesn't need this. They are doing it by pen and paper, and they don't need an IT service. Or if they do need, sometimes it is possible to create new markets, even for startups. To be honest, normally new markets are not created by startups, but by larger companies, but sometimes you can do it. But even then, it's a very, very costly thing, because you need to prepare your market, you need to build trust among the people, you need to explain people what the solution is, what the market is, etc. And all that takes time and investment. And investment costs you money if you have good investors that can work. On the other hand, more importantly, building trust and explaining the market what the situation is, teaching the market, so to speak, takes time, which you basically cannot afford if you are a young company and want to grow fast. Also, similar things is it's very important to have a strategy on and a decision on whether you want to disrupt a market or the strong players, or to become partners with them. And the example I mean, there are several examples, of course, and I think it's important because the hype around the startup ecosystem usually says that I mean, what we usually say is, what you read in the papers is something like, you need disruptive innovation. You need something, a great idea that would disrupt the market, that would rule out and kill all players. The strong players would go small, like Kodak did, and the new company can grow in their space, etc. And people tend to think that that's the only way to go. And I tend to think that it could be a way to go, but it's also a dangerous way, and you need to understand the situation because you have another option. Actually, you can become partner with the large players, and then later on you can gain your market share. And the example actually I have here is the real estate business. You know, a real estate business, what happens is people are looking for houses, people are trying to sell houses, and there are the real estate brokers who make the match. The whole thing is about trust, basically. And you might come up with an innovative technology solution. People did things in this domain. But as an outsider, it's very hard to build the trust, to gain the trust of the customers, that the listings that you have are valid listings, and if they make a deal with you, you can pull the deal, etc., etc. So one option is to say, okay, I will create this app, and I will try to put the market upside down. And one option for this could be that you build an app, you release it for free, everybody would be using that, and once you have the deals, you will try to actually make it happen in the real life as well. And what your hope in this case is that once the users get used to the app, to the way to do business, then you can really start monetizing on it, selling extra services, and so on. The other option is to say, okay, let's become partners and let's integrate or solution with one of the old school service providers. I'm not saying any one of those is better. The important thing is to understand what works for you and to be aware that there are these options. And yeah, finally, internalization. This is nothing new. The basic fundamental idea is to figure out what is your market and where you want to grow. And one important thing is that it's important not to think about borders and countries, but about customers. And if you, I mean, sometimes it's easier, in some cases it's easier. The US companies usually have this approach. They, companies from the Silicon Valley and elsewhere in the US have a global view. So they pick the market instead of the state or the city. Or, and some companies in Europe also, the companies in some countries in Europe also have this basic approach, normally because of the size of the market. Estonia is notorious on that. It's a very often quoted example because Estonian market is extremely small. They have about 2 million people, and it's very hard to make a relevant business on this market. So they normally think about a global market or a European large market from day one because that's the way they can do things. But in many other countries, I would say in most European countries, this is not normal approach. Even in Hungary, we only have about 10 million people, which is a small market, but still companies tend to think, okay, let's try it out locally. We speak the language, we understand the market, we understand the players, the rules, the legal background, etc., etc. And once we are successful here, let's try to go abroad. I know Poland might be a tempting example as well because you have a large market here, etc., etc. But let's turn this whole thing upside down, and here is this question, and this is the motivation for the quote that, or for the statement, think about markets and not growth. So the question is, I don't know how many of you know how the evolution of Uber. You might have heard that it started out in Seattle, and it started working there, became successful there, and then they started their expansion. And the question is, what do you think, whether they went to Sunnyvale, Texas, or Berlin? And of course, they went to Berlin because Berlin was similar in culture, similar in size. The local ecosystem, local economy was similar. And Sunnyvale was much closer to them, of course, but it has a much different culture. You know, Texans like their big cars, driving their own cars, etc., etc. Big distances as well. Whereas in Berlin, I mean, Berlin is big as well, but compared to the large distances in the US, it's still relatively small, densely populated. It was easier to do. So this is the kind of thing to think about. Where do you want to go? And let me quote a few examples from the EIT Digital Accelerator. There is a company called Uniplaces. It's a Portuguese company. And basically, they sell student housing. So they help university students to find their accommodations. And as I said, they started in Portugal. They became successful. And they designed an expansion strategy. And basically, what they did, they decided to target the second-tier European university cities, because their reasoning was, okay, of course, student housing is big where universities are, and also the reasoning was that the top university towns are already covered, so they needed a niche where they can easily expand. And they did this. They defined the market. They said, okay, university towns, not the top ones, second tier, all across Europe, and let's do the move. And it worked for them very well. And they didn't think about the countries when designing this move. Another very different example where this type of thinking came much more naturally is Konux, one of the success companies in the IT Digital Accelerator. They basically sell an IoT-based service for maintenance, service, equipment maintenance. To simplify things, they sell this service to maintain railroad tracks. So they have these little devices measuring the quality or intactness of the railways, the actual tracks. And they sell, we have them, that was what we did with them, we have them to sell it to Deutsche Bahn. And then they wanted to expand further. And of course, in this case, normally you have one, maybe two railway track companies per country. So it's quite clear that you cannot stay within your own country. The only way to expand is to sell more and more to more and more countries. And of course, that's what they did. On the other hand, in some cases and in some markets, in some services, it makes sense to stay local, at least for a while. For example, if you are a German company with some, say, smart factory solution targeting SMEs, then, well, you have quite a number of SMEs in Germany, many of them working in the somehow in the factory domain. So it might make sense to stay local because, well, of course, going global has its own or international has its own challenges as well. Of course, it's more costly. So when you make that big step, you either have a big profit rate or you have good investors or helpers like EIT Digital Accelerator. And there are other challenges, of course, especially if you want to do it organically. So if you think about very basic things like, you know, let's assume you enter 4 countries at the same time. All of a sudden you need to deal with 4 different cultures, 4 different languages, legislations, etc. You need to follow up leads in 4 different places, etc., etc. So it is challenging and requires some thinking. Sometimes it makes sense to do it one by one, like saying, okay, I go to Germany first, then maybe go to other German-speaking countries, or, you know, sometimes it makes sense to do it at once. And this is where we can help you with, we can help scale-ups with. This is where our expertise lies. We can help devising this strategy. And the core is always thinking about the market first, understanding what market you are targeting, and then translating that to countries. So basically, these were the 6 simple ideas, many of them very, very simple and at the startup level, and some of them on the internalization issue. And this is what we can help companies with. As I said, we normally don't work with companies who need this type of advice. So like, you know, not knowing who is their customer or not understanding the competition, we try to check these out during the scouting phase, because these companies need to do their homework at home or wherever they are. And once they figure that out, once they have the sales, once they have the recurring revenue on the order of €1 million, we can be quite sure that they understand the basic questions. And then we can help with the remainder, the strategy of internalization. And as I said, we are mainly focused on Europe. I forgot to mention that we have this map here. The dots are actually the countries where we are represented. So basically, yeah, let me spend some time here because I forgot. The dark green companies are where we actually have offices. So that's where EIT Digital is present. You can see it's basically Western Europe, the Nordics, and Hungary as an exception. And where you have the dots, we have offices. So that's in Europe where we have the offices. Then you have the light green countries. These are the countries in our outreach program, and where we have the gray dots in those companies, we have a partner that we work with. So we have offices in the black dots, and we have partner offices in these countries. And I'm happy to announce that from this fall, we have a partner in Slovakia as well, and another one in Portugal. So we are growing. But the basic idea behind this map is that we can help you with quite a number of countries in Europe. Our focus is in Europe, but we can also help you to an extent in the Silicon Valley as well, because we have an office there as well. Okay, thank you very much. This was basically what I wanted to share with you, and I will be available during the networking session for further inquiries.
Indeed.
Thank you very much.
Any questions to Laszlo? Or everyone's waiting for dinner? Any questions? Oh, yeah, there is one.
One question: how do you price your services? Are you entering on shares, or no?
So the business model of our
the business
services,
model behind.
we are success fee based. So basically, that's the underlying factor. We are success fee based, and the way we operate is that every payment is delayed. So the idea is that we provide this service for not for profit, but to recover some of our costs, and we do not want to kill the company with the cost. So basically, we provide the services, we sign a contract where the company agrees to the success fees, but they start paying after 1.5 years. So if they are really on the growth curve, there should be no problem of paying that by then.
Anyone else? Okay, so thank you a lot.
Thank you.
Dziękujemy.